Hey everyone, Trick Wallace back with another great eShop deals video. I've got over 20 different games I'm going to recommend to you today. If at any point you feel like you are getting value out of this content and you're not yet subscribed, please consider clicking that subscribe button today. So let's jump right into these deals. First of all, we have a game that I have really wanted an excuse to talk to you about for quite a while. This is the Pinball Wizard. Now, the simplest way to sort of genreify and describe this game, it's a roguelike, dungeon crawler, pinball game. Yes, all three of those things combined. Very simply, your pinball is actually your character, which is a sort of wizard, and you're going to be bopping them around all these different pinball tables, but these pinball tables are actually different floors and a tower that you are making your way up. And just like in typical roguelike fashion, there will be permanent upgrades that you will be collecting along the way. This is definitely a game that is tailor-made for me. I love video pinball, I love roguelikes, and I love dungeon crawlers. It mashes them all together so perfectly. It's very lighthearted, very easy to get into. It's honestly one of my favorite budget titles from last year. It just kind of flew under the radar, and I don't think it got enough buzz. But now you can pick it up for 50% off for only $3.99. I absolutely recommend it at full price, and I especially then recommend it at this deal price. Terror of Hemosaurus is at 30% off, its lowest price ever. That brings it down to $10.49. Now, I talk about this in more detail in my last Hidden Gems eShop video, but the quick summary of this, it is a modern day rampage. So you're gonna pick your monster, you're gonna terrorize cities, tear down buildings, eat people, all that kind of good stuff. This one definitely strikes the perfect balance of modernizing the genre, but also keeping what really made those old rampage games so engaging. Just like the old games, the concept is simple, easy to understand, but there's enough new elements such as physics-based buildings that you're bringing down that kind of change up the strategy a little bit. If you're a fan of Rampage, this is an absolute must-add to your Switch collection. Royal Frontier is matching its previous low price, 50% off, only $3.49. This is another amazing budget game that just didn't get enough attention. This is essentially a board game roguelike, but mixed with Super Mario RPG or Paper Mario style combat. Now, do note that unlike Mario RPG or Paper Mario, this game is very light, if at all, on story. This is all about taking, though, those combat systems that we so love in those games and just adding them to a simple roguelike board game. The pixel art is on point, the combat is super satisfying, great roguelike upgrades for each subsequent run. This is an absolute steal of a deal at that price. Young Souls is currently 40% off for only $14.99. That is by far its lowest price ever. Now, I'm going to say something slightly controversial. I actually think Young Souls in some ways was actually my favorite beat 'em up of last year. And yes, I know the new Ninja Turtles came out last year. I love that one too. I think if I wanted something that's more like a traditional old school style beat 'em up, the Ninja Turtles definitely wins out. But if you want something that's a bit meatier and a much bigger experience, I think Young Souls is the way to go. So this takes the core beat 'em up, but adds in a really meaty story and very strong RPG mechanics. So you're gonna be leveling up characters, and you're also gonna be collecting new weapons that also have their own abilities and new armor, all kinds of great addictive gameplay loops. So if you're a fan of RPGs and beat 'em ups, this one is an absolute must buy. Rhythm Sprout is getting its first ever deal price for 20% off, bringing it down to $11.99. Now, I don't usually recommend deals that are only 20% off, but I was absolutely blown away by how much fun Rhythm Sprout is. This is a very simple little music rhythm game where you are taking Sprout, who is the chosen onion, and you are trying to repel this sort of candy horde that is trying to take over vegetable land or whatever it's called. But it's just super easy to get into. Now, it does have a very steep challenge as you get to the later levels, but the input is just so simple. It's only 3 buttons that you have to learn, and it's going to just continually build on that simple system with higher and higher difficulties. It has a really fun sense of humor and an art style that scales perfectly on the Switch. Honestly, I haven't compared it to the other versions, but at no point during playing this did I think this looked like any kind of downgraded port. I definitely think if you're normally off-put by music rhythm games, this would be a good one to dip your toes in and try that genre with. This next one is a quick recommendation because every time I recommend this game and show footage, which I'm not going to, it always gets copyright claimed. But LEGO Star Wars The Skywalker Saga, which is by far one of the best reviewed LEGO Star Wars games ever, is at its lowest price ever, a whopping 70% off, bringing it down to $17.99. So we're going to move on quick because, like I said, I just can't show footage of this one. Trifox is 35% off for only $12.99. This was such a fun little game from last year that, again, just doesn't get the attention it deserved. Now think simple platform mechanics, sort of like Crash Bandicoot, but mixed with a twin-stick shooter. You play as the fox from the title, and your precious remote control for your TV has been stolen. So you're going to be making your way through all these different levels, but the real meat and potatoes of this game is the fact that there are 3 different skill trees you can invest in. There's a mage, an engineer, and a warrior class. But where this game really excels is the fact that it doesn't make you commit to either skill tree, and you can mix and match abilities from all of them. Personally, I leaned towards the engineer because I loved setting up turrets and mines and all kinds of booby traps. Well, this is just one of those games that really understands that it's great to let the player decide how they want to play. So I definitely recommend this for fans of light platforming and, again, twin stick shooter action. So here's a quick double recommendation. You've got Metro 2033 redo and Metro Last Light redo. I'm never sure if that's actually how you pronounce that word, but I think it's redo. But both of these are at a rock bottom low price. You've got Metro 2033 for $3.74. That is 85% off. And Last Light 80% off for only $4.99. These are absolutely amazing first-person shooter, stealth kind of horror games. Definitely not for the faint of heart, but if you love that genre, these run amazing on the Switch, and they are really a showcase for what the Switch can do graphically. Speaking of another platformer that really flew under the radar, and I don't think anyone really noticed, we have Cuckoos Lost Pets. It is 34% off, its lowest price ever, bringing it down to $19.79. This is a pretty straightforward little 3D platformer. It's all about retrieving your pets that have been stolen, and as you retrieve them, they have different abilities that help you get through different platforming challenges. This one can actually be played up to co-op with 4 people, so great if you've got a crowd to enjoy it. I got a chance to play this though, and even as a single player experience, it's pretty darn engaging. Don't expect anything revolutionary, but if you're just a sucker for 3D platformers in general, I think you'll still find a lot to enjoy in this one. The Procession to Calvary is 55% off. That is its lowest price ever, bringing it down to $6.74. Now, this is a point-and-click adventure game, so more of a traditional old-school one. Not at all my genre of choice. I haven't tried it, but I have heard that if you are a fan of the genre and you like Monty Python-style humor, you would absolutely love this one. So basically, the imagery, as you can see, is all this sort of Renaissance painting, and that is how you were playing out this point-and-click adventure, and it's got a really wicked, biting sense of humor. Definitely one for the point-and-click adventure fans to take notice of. Now, a more modern style point-and-click style adventure is Road 96. This takes on the more telltale, sort of Walking Dead style of gameplay for a point-and-click. This is at its lowest price ever, 70% off for $5.98. I haven't personally got to try this one yet, but I've heard really great things. This one actually mixes some roguelike elements into a point-and-click. But the Switch version is extremely well reviewed, and the Steam version has over 10,000 very positive reviews. But this one is all about a road trip intertwined with meeting crazy characters and crazy scenarios. Again, sounds like for fans of the genre, it would be a very wise pickup. Severed Steel is at its lowest price ever, 55% off for $11.24. I've mentioned this game before. This is a really sweet little first-person shooter. It's all about amazing parkour action, destructible environments. It's that kind of first-person shooter where you're just trying to bounce from kill to kill. Very stylistic, and from, again, what I've heard, the Switch version runs beautifully. So for those who are looking for their next super stylized first-person shooter, I think you would very much enjoy this one. Now, I know I gave my big endorsement to Young Souls, but I gotta still give it up to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder's Revenge. Definitely the best traditional style beat 'em up that came out last year. And this game will definitely stand the test of time. I can imagine 5 years from now, I'll be like in the mood for a beat 'em up and I'll say, you know what, I'm gonna play Shredder's Revenge. Now, it's only matching its previous low of 20% off for $19.99, but the fact of the matter is I'm sure this game sells well and they know they don't need to drop it to any sort of rock bottom price yet. In fact, I would say probably until the summertime when we get to its 1-year release, you're probably not gonna see a better deal than this. Streets of Rogue is at its lowest price ever. That is 60% off for $7.99. You can also get the character pack edition. That is at its lowest price also for 60% off for $9.19. Now, as its name suggests, that does include extra characters. This is a roguelike that's mixed with sort of a Sim-style procedurally generated world. But if you like those really fast top-down perspective roguelikes and you just enjoy grabbing them all, this would definitely be a wise pickup. It is well reviewed. I have not personally gotten to play it, but I'm always very tempted to pick it up. I think I might pick it up on this sale. Warborn is at its lowest price ever, 85% off for only $3.74. I've mentioned this in a past video before. The simplest way to describe it, it's a turn-based strategy game that plays basically like Advance Wars, but you add in mechs instead. And I honestly don't think you can argue with that. That sounds perfect. God's Will Fall is hitting its lowest price ever, 80% off for only $2.99. Or you can get the Valiant Edition, which has some extra DLC for only $1 more. That is 80% off for $3.99. This is a really unique roguelike. I will tell you right off the bat that this is a very divisive game when it came to critics. I know that an outlet like SwitchUp said they absolutely loved it and they thought it was great. Other outlets have said they thought it was awful. So it's going to be something you definitely want to get into some deeper dive reviews before you pick it up. But the basic gist is you take the control of this sort of clan of Vikings and they are making their way through this land and taking on these ancient gods. The roguelike element being that if one of your characters dies, you have to send in a new character to try to go and retrieve him and bring him out. It's a really unique, very beautiful Switch game. Again, check out the reviews so that you can make sure you're making a choice that's going to jive with your gaming preferences. Windbound is matching its previous low for 90% off for only $1.99. This is a really cool, very Breath of the Wild looking island survival game. Now, this game had a bit of a rough launch, so I wouldn't go by the reviews you see online because, yeah, it just didn't launch in a great state, but it's gotten patched multiple times now. It runs way better, has way less glitches. I think now is as good a time as any. Obviously, it's never going to get cheaper than this. At least that's unlikely it will. Seems like a really great way to dip your toes into that sort of survival game genre that is kind of intimidating, honestly, to normally get into. Slimeson is an amazing 2D precision platformer. It is now 75% off, bringing it down to only $2.99. That is matching its previous low. This game does go on sale very frequently, but it has been over 2 years since it's been this cheap again. Very simply, you play as Slimeson and he's been gobbled up by this giant worm and you're making your way out of this worm, which actually has like cities inside of it and other creatures. It's really weird, but if you love precision platformers, you'll be in heaven with this one. Ninja Clash of Carrots is 80% off for only $1.99. I don't see this one get recommended a lot, but this is a really actually very well reviewed little beat 'em up. It's really unique in the way the fact that the gameplay plays out, you were always running forward. So it's kind of like if you mixed a shoot 'em up maybe with a beat 'em up, but has some cool RPG elements. You're going to be collecting new weapons, leveling up. I think it's just an underrated little beat 'em up experience that a lot of people don't know about. And definitely for $1.99, the barrier to entry to try it is very low. Definitely one that you should consider checking out. Jellycar Worlds is 20% off, bringing it down to $6.39. Now, this is a very budget title to begin with, so I felt like 20% off is still reasonable enough to include it. I love the Jellycar games. I have been playing them all the way back from the original one that came out on the iPhone. But this is the newest one in the series. This is basically a physics-based little racing game, all kind of set out in this sort of flip book hand-drawn world. But it's super polished, super beautiful, really easy to get into, very whimsical, just a ton of fun. I love how all the sound effects are basically just a person making sound effects with their mouth for all the things. So if you like a light physics-based racing game with a lot of elements that'll make you feel nostalgic for childhood, you're definitely going to enjoy Jellycar Worlds. Gravity Heroes is hitting its lowest price ever, 50% off for only $5.99. Now, this is a really unique little sort of single screen arena shooter game. It can be played with up to 4 people co-op, but the trick to this game is that you are constantly in control of the gravity. So with the right stick, anytime you press up, down, left, or right, you change the gravity to push you in that direction. But as you master this game, you can really do some crazy maneuvers because you can change the gravity in between as you're floating around. So even though you might have changed your gravity to push you up, in the middle of that, you can push left. And so you can get your guy sort of just like floating around in the middle, dodging all the bullets that are coming at you. Definitely a really fun little arena shooter that doesn't get mentioned enough. If you want something in this genre, but with a new little twist, I think you would really enjoy this one. It is well reviewed. I think it's worth checking out. Windjammers 2 is at its lowest price ever, 35% off for only $12.99. If you're not familiar with Windjammers, just think something like air hockey, but on absolute steroids. But you'll be choosing a really cool stylized character. You're going to be throwing this disc back and forth, all kinds of ways to sort of just slam it into the other guy and bash with him. The new art is absolutely beautiful, really modernizes that old Windjammers for the future. So if you like really frenetic arcade experiences, definitely check out Windjammers 2. And finally, because it was my favorite game of last year, I've got to give a shout out to Tinykin. It is back on sale for 20% off, only $19.99. I know it's not a big discount, but I absolutely adored Tinykin. This is basically a collectathon style platformer, but mixed with Pikmin. So you're going to be collecting these Tinykin, which give you different abilities to reach new areas in each level. It's just so charming, it's so relaxing, engaging. Every time you enter a new level, you're just gonna be looking around and seeing all the cool areas you get to explore. It's just like a true digital playground. It sits at an 87 right now on Metacritic, and honestly, even I don't think that's high enough. Again, I say this is my favorite game of last year. All right, I hope you enjoyed these deal picks. Again, if you find value out of this video, please hit that subscribe button. As always, I will be live streaming Thursday evening. I haven't chosen yet which game I'm going to, but I always live stream new games at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Thursdays. So I hope to see you there. Until next time, I hope you have great gaming. Bye-bye.